What is the election date?
Yeah, so it should have been the spring, May of 2027, but Danielle Smith extended it by 6 months because of the smoke, wildfire smoke, climate change that doesn't really happen here. But yeah, so it should have been October 2027, but we suspect it'll be the fall of 2026.
What would trigger an early election?
Her, yeah. So she would just call, she gets to go to the lieutenant governor and say, I'm calling an election. Then that's called drop a writ. I don't really know why they call it that way. There's a lot of odd things that happen in the legislature, like the desk banging. Don't really know what that's about, but that's what we do. So they call it dropping the writ, and the writ period then is it's a month long, right? So that's our election period. And conservatives don't tend to finish their terms. I mean, if you look back over the last 50 years.
Go ahead. So what's the plan for people that are affected by age? Like right now, there's a lot suffering or there's a lot lower. So yes, we've got plans, the ANDP will win the election and then you can get some real power.
Yeah.
That's not helping the people that are down there right now.
No.
Is there a plan in place?
No, there's not a plan, and there's nothing that we can really do. And that's the worst part about this, right? So you've got thousands and thousands of people are about to take a hit financially, and there's very little that we can do because we don't have the votes to change or amend any of their budget lines or any of their legislation. So this is just the brutal truth, is that there's nothing that we can do to change what they're doing. The only thing that we can do that has been successful up till now, and the only thing they've ever done and backed off or changed, is by public pressure, is applying that public pressure. Really good examples of that are, they're at it again, right? The coal mining on the eastern slopes of the Rockies. We were quite successful during COVID around that time to get them to pause. We went through another election cycle, they came back and were hard at it again, and they're doing it again. So public pressure can get them to pause or back off. In terms of disabilities, we've got them to change the deposit dates back to where they were, and that was just public pressure. I think that they've held off on some of these cuts that they're doing now. I think we've held off just because of pressure, but there's not much we can do. This government's idea of helping people with disabilities that are struggling with poverty is to add more shelter mats. And we've seen them fund shelters that aren't even accessible.
Just one other quip there. AISH has to reapply for AISH.
Correct.
And I think I heard you say there's a cost to that, $200 to $500.
There is, and actually they've inserted a piece. Again, this is just them talking. I haven't seen the legislation yet or the regulation, so this is just what they're announcing. But I also think that in the new way that they design their program, once you apply for AISH and are turned down, you can't apply again. Yeah, and they've changed the appeal process too.
So what are your suggestions for public pressure?
So public pressure is super easy. So I would suggest that you write your MLA, call your MLA. Do I think they'll call you back or write you back? No. Do I think their staff will read what you're talking about? Yes, they'll read your email, and we count them. We all count them. So I could say to my staff, can you tell me in June how many letters did we get about coal mining? So they can go in and tell me. And we all do that. Every office does that, and that's really how we tell where people are focused and what's important to them, and that's where the public pressure comes to. I always encourage everyone to use your social media the best you can. Post your story, talk about how it's impacting your life or your friend's life or your family's life. Call the minister, call the premier, write to them both, and keep doing it. One time's not going to cut it. We need to get into the thousands. I know when my office starts getting pelted with thousands, I need to pay attention to something. So there'll be something brewing, let's say in some other part of Alberta that I'm not paying attention to, and then suddenly we're getting all of this email about an issue, and then I'll look into it. And that's what needs to happen in offices all across the province.
One more question, then
Sure.
I'll shut up. You get all these things to fill online, like the RCMP, and you sign the petition. Cannot something like that be set up for AISH?
Yeah, I think there are probably a few going on right now. Yeah, there are a few going on right now, and people feel, I think it helps people feel like they're doing something, to sign a petition, to show up to a rally. These are all things that when you bring them all together is public pressure. You can't just do one thing, it has to be lots of things. And so I think once we get back in October to the end of October, we'll also be able to turn up the heat in a different avenue, on a different venue, right? So we have different tools we can use in the legislature. But sadly, unfortunately, we can't reverse these really dangerous changes until we have the democratic ability to really change it. Yes?
Have you heard that under PDD now, that the most of the money is being taken from PD to support people with alcohol and
Oh, and addictions?
addictions, as well as the homeless? And I have a son, he's here. We cannot get services.
Yeah.
He's got all the qualifications for services. And I was told to do everything I can to get him into independent living, which
Yeah.
is just about impossible.
Yeah.
I have to do that, and I'm more than willing to do it, but there are no supports. They want him to get a job. He could do a job if somebody could read him and understand that he's had enough at this point. He needs a break. He needs a worker.
Mm-hmm.
I can get no workers at all. He's 24 hours a day care. He's functioning fairly well, but he's 4 to 8 cognitively. He's 20 years old. I've been fighting for 3 years. This isn't my first kick at the cat. I did this before, and I met with the ministers of both children's and adult services at the time, and nothing is better. It's far worse now than it ever was.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to get all these people. My understanding is they're taking people out of Centennial Hospital in Pinoca, wanting them on independent living where they've had 24 hours a day care and getting 20 hours. And they take priority from anyone else in the community.
Yeah, so things are, as I said earlier, things are very, very bad. There's 2 programs in Alberta that fund staffing costs for people over 18 and then under 18 to have staff so you can live and work and all the things you need to do in the community. And those are, big ticket items on the Alberta budget. So I think the 2 programs combined are probably like $1.5 billion for these 2 programs. And those are the ones that they've hidden the wait list since 2021. So in 2021, there were 4,400 families waiting for the under 18, and probably about, 2,000 or so waiting for over 18. I'm sure it's like tripled or quadrupled since then. But what we hear from anecdotally, because you can't really get information from the ECP, they're so secretive. And let's be honest, they just lie all the time, so even when they tell you something, I don't believe it. But what we learned is that intake has essentially stopped. So unless you are in imminent harm of really harming yourself or others, there's just no way you're getting anything. Or if they need you out of a hospital, out of acute care. And so people with, let's say, you're living semi-independently, you only get a couple hours staff a week, but maybe now you have Alzheimer's, you want to stay for a while, and you just need to add a bit more hours, you can't get it. So I have an example of a fellow, he was probably in his 50s, his folks are in their 80s. I think the dad died, mom is still alive, she can't care for him anymore and needs him to go into care, and he's just been sitting on the wait list. He's not urgent. So nobody's moving. And so this is how they kill services, but they do it quietly. And so it is harming, it's not just harming people, everyday people in their daily lives, but it's harming Alberta in a sense that when you start to sort of squash thousands of people, the potential of thousands and thousands of people, you're harming our economy and our communities. And I don't get the sense that this government can see beyond, the end of their nose. They tend to budget in political cycles, in election cycles. They don't seem to look long-term about what's best for Albertans, and I think as a result, a lot of people are being hurt. And to be quite frank, I don't think people with disabilities are a priority for this government.
They've lost all value to them.
Yeah.
All value.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just a few things about the media. The media is not playing a role that helps us understand the issues really well. I recognize your answer about social media, and I think that's a form that we have to use. But we do need to depend on the media to get the stories out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a strategy for working liaison with media, number one, and trying to help them with their role as an informative body in the democracy.
question and comment. So what we do know, even in the 10 years that I've been doing this, the media landscape has changed dramatically. There's a literally press gallery. There's a gallery where they sit in the legislature, and it'd be full, right? So you'd definitely have the Calgary Herald and the Journal and Red Deer and maybe Lethbridge, St. Albert might be hanging out there. There'd always be press gallery. There'd always be reporters there. There'd always be scrums, where they're all putting the things in your face. That was normal for us. That is no longer normal. So most of the time you don't see anybody there. They're usually in their office and they're sharing stories. You might see one person there. So the media environment has changed so much that paid media, or we call it earned media, when we don't pay for it, is really difficult to get because they all sort of share stories. So, for example, I know if an article is showing up in St. Albert paper, it has likely gone to like 20 other papers. Like the Journal is sharing with the Herald and like lots of other towns. So it is hard to get earned media. I think it's naturally, if you're the premier or the governing party, you're always going to be more interesting to media. So it's hard to compete with that. What we're trying to do, and I think Nahed's brought in some new people with some new ideas, is different ways of us communicating with people. I think we were stuck in our little lanes and maybe didn't think about other ways of doing it. So we're trying to be a little bit more creative when we reach out to people, knowing that it's hard to get earned media, whereas, the Journal will call you up and say, hey, can we do an interview? That still happens, but it doesn't happen as much. So for me personally, let's say, I will look at what tools do I have. For me, it's like making videos on, just creating my own video to share with people. Sometimes it's writing a letter to the editor of your own local paper. I don't know if you have a local Vermilion paper. Letters to the editor are really terrific. Sorry, you have how to follow it?
Well, just to follow, just as long as there's some liaison that's significantly undertaken, because there are a lot of elderly people who don't engage with these other forms of media
Absolutely.
to the same degree as they do with the paid media.
You're right,
So I
yeah.
don't think we can give up on them.
Yeah, and that's where the big dollars, if you're thinking about signing up for a PAC, which is pre-authorized contributions to your EDA, great idea, because it also helps fund the party, and that's where the big spending comes in, right? So we're having to buy television ads, we're having to buy like YouTube ads, we're having to buy, wrap, the paper, we wrap the paper, we bought that the last election, probably didn't see it, but the Journal and the Herald, like all of this expensive advertising, we are, trying to fundraise for. Sorry, this is really bad. But yeah, we do try to get earned media all the time with our press releases, with the way that we do press conferences, but it is far more challenging. I know Nahed's team, well, it's our team, we're all one team, but I think he's brought in some new people with new perspectives. I think that is really exciting. So we're gonna try some things we have not tried before, and you know what? That's a good thing. We actually have a retreat coming up. We're leaving tomorrow for a few days, all of us as a caucus, where we get together and plan our legislative session that's coming up at the end of October. So we're always bringing in all the feedback we get from AGMs or from our own work in our communities, and we always bring the feedback. And I will tell you what you said about increasing our visibility through earned media comes up all the time. So it's not like it won't get said about 6 times in the next few days. So yes, go ahead.
Evening, everyone. Let's start with the first question that we're
Okay.
still on here. My name is Jerry, and I'm actually a media person in this area.
Okay.
I've lived here since about 2010. I started off at the television station CKSA, which is now gone away. And in that time, I've come to know a lot of people in the agriculture community. As I look at how the media has gone in the last little while, and I often joke with myself, I'm amazed that I've come this far. It kind of haggles me, because it's a two-way street. When we talk about how the media has gone and why the local TV station in Lloydminster went away after, 50, 60 years. It's abruptly. They went to work one day and they were told their jobs were no more. But it's a two-way street. One is the product that was being produced, so the product that we produce is media, that we need to look at constantly. But it also has to do with the audience and the community is receiving us. And that two-way street has changed a lot in the last 5 years since COVID. And the communities, one, need to hold the media accountable, maybe more. Like, I'm here in my own time this evening, just observing and listening. I had some other questions and some other reasons why I'm here. But it is a two-way street, and that was part of the reason why the TV station went the way. The media is also contracted in terms of the resources that are available. And for myself, I'm literally a one-man show writing for my website, which I'm very proud to do. I have lots of concerns about AISH and how people who have very little will end up with nothing. And that's one of the other reasons that I'm here today, because that really concerns me and bothers my mind. And the other reason now, moving on from the media concern, because it is very challenging. There have been a number of other media houses that have come in to try to fill the gap that has been created since the local TV station disappeared. But again, they're all one-person operations. So that is challenging in terms of getting everywhere. And the onus on the community and NGOs and so on. Yes, you may depend on your local social media, your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, all these other avenues. Traditional media still exists. I work for a radio station that has a 100,000 watt transmitter that broadcasts all the way to Vegreville in that direction, all the way to North Battleford, and a similar distance north and south. Apart from, but because of how the landscape have gone, people are dependent on their social media instead of the good old-fashioned email, letter in the mail, or just picking up the phone and calling. Those things still actually work. And it's the reason that I came to the meeting today. Somebody told me about it. So I said, okay. And there were a few other things I could have gone and done on this evening. My one question for you, Marie, as I look at what has happened in my own life in the last 15 years, and for 10 of those years, I've become a Canadian citizen now. I'm concerned about the Canada that I signed up into, whether that will still exist. And that's one of the reasons why I'm putting my foot down and saying, I'll come to a meeting like this evening. One of the other things that I remembered when the NDP was in government was the efforts that the agriculture minister made to come out to Lloydminster. I met him on maybe at least 2 or 3 occasions each time that he came to Lloydminster. And I'm wondering, because it's one thing to be in the city centers, and this is the question here. What is the thinking, what is the planning to win rural ridings and take government?
Well, that's an easy question. So, yeah, that's a big question. First of all, yay for media that's still operating and that is very local. I represent St. Albert, which is bigger than Vermilion, but so I have the best relationships, I think, with the small local media outlets. I find the reporters there, the journalists, are, they just have more time to dig deep, and they're really focused on their community. So I'm very fortunate to have the St. Albert Gazette that is fantastic. So I'm really happy that Vermilion has something local. But so your question is, how does the ANDP win rural? Well, I think with the realization, I think we have a pretty good idea what we did wrong in the last election and the election before that. So I think that we've done a lot of soul searching in the last year, especially with the new leader. So bringing in a new leader and some new staff and maybe new polling people and all of that, we're starting to get another look at the way we operate and the way that we conduct our business. And so I think just that in itself, I think is going to help, is that we're looking at things from a different angle. Do I think that there's going to be a path to victory to win all of the rural and remote ridings? No, it's going to take some time. So I think back to St. Albert, my own riding in 2015, there were 3 of us. And we had nothing. We had zero money. We just had nothing. We had no name recognition. There was no organization, and we had to build from scratch. And what I do know is that the only way to win elections, whether it's rural, remote, or a mid-sized city, whatever it is that you can't start working towards the election when the election's called. Is that you have to be well prepared at least a year ahead of time. And I know it's gonna sound like, it's just money. You need money. You need money to have a good campaign. You need to buy some advertising in your paper or whatever, wherever you can. You need billboards, you need mail-outs, you need signs. You need to be at every event that your community hosts, whether it's a garage sale, community league meeting, a New Year's Day event, whatever it is. But you need to be ingrained in that community and be there all the time. And so I do think it's possible to win seats where we're not projected to win, but you gotta do the work. And it's a lot of work, and thinking that you can do that by just being ready when the election's called is just, it's not realistic. I know for us, we've now, we have an advantage because we've done this a few times now, but we are well in sort of election mode. And that means we're hardcore fundraising, hardcore door knocking, and for us, hardcore door knocking means like we're going twice a week. Once you get into the habit of these things, and it's annoying, like I'm not gonna lie, I harass the hell out of all of our volunteers probably every other day. And oh my God, it's her again on WhatsApp. And I'm constantly asking them, will you come do this? Will you come volunteer? And people will get used to it. It's just 1 day a week or 2 days a week or maybe every other week that you're doing, but you're getting people to commit and you're starting a routine where it's a given. You're doing it every single week without fail. Okay, minus 25, you can stop. But it's really important that you start to do these things. I cannot tell you where we've had the biggest upsets and the biggest shakeups really are in ridings where we know that the EDA has been busy and working at a community level. I'll give you an example. In 2015, we won that seat, and then by 2019 they did a boundary change like they're doing now. And so that's always scary because your whole riding is changing. So that happened. We just didn't know how we were gonna do. As you probably recall, after 4 years of Rachel Notley, we were not a very popular government. We were polling fairly low towards the end of the 4-year term, and it looked like we weren't probably gonna win re-election. And we got almost wiped out of the big cities. There were only 2 seats that were not in the big cities, and that was Shannon Phillips in Lethbridge and myself in St. Albert. And the reason I know that we knew that we were gonna win going in, Shannon and I, is that we had done the work between the elections, right? You cannot wait until the election is called to start. So we were busy fundraising and door knocking throughout the term. So we felt reasonably sure that we would do well. And it's just it's hard grunt work is what it is. There is no magic pill or magic formula. It is hardcore grunt work every week, every month, for the entire year leading up to the election, I would say for all 4 years between elections. But that's how you do it. It's just slogging away, and it is just grunt work. And it's not all that glamorous, but I'll tell you, when we are successful and when we form government, and when you have a representative in that place that truly represents your values, it's all worth it. And I just wanted to say one other thing. I love that you're focusing on youth as well. And looking for youth representation. We also struggle too, because I think a lot of older folks have more time to volunteer. People like me at my age maybe have more time, my kids are grown up. But we deliberately look for young people because I think they bring in a whole new perspective and their goals are different. And let's be honest, they're gonna run the place soon. So they need to learn how to do that. I hope I came close to answering your question. I feel like maybe.
I think so. I'm
Okay.
just tempted to ask if there was a playbook that you
A playbook? No.
to lend to this EDA here.
A playbook? I mean, I would ask, see that one back there with the black shirt, Jillian back there? She's the money lady in St. Albert. She also has lots of advice, about how to organize and manage things. And again, the reason I'm pointing her out is, after this meeting as an EDA, reach out to other EDAs that are offering help. I know that we've offered help before at different AGMs, and nobody's really taken us up on it, but we really are ready to help, just like we had older ridings, more mature ridings, help us out when we were very new. So There is a way to win. It is totally winnable. St. Albert is like, I don't know if you, anyone been to St. Albert or lived there before? Yeah. St. Albert's a pretty conservative place, right? It is. It just is. It was called a swing seat for a very long time because I think way back in the 80s they had a New Democrat. And then I think once in the 90s they had a Liberal. But other than that, it's been conservative. So for us to have won 3 consecutive elections that tell you it is the grassroots organizing that does it. That is all that it is. It's door knocking, it's talking to people, it's being there at events, it's knowing your neighbors, it's talking to everybody in your little circle. And I think, somebody said something earlier to me about, y'all went to a meeting and you took your signs. Mm-hmm. And it was a nonpartisan sort of, you didn't promote we're New Democrats and we're here, protesting this. And I think that's great. I think that a lot of communities are tired of the partisan fighting and they really want to know less about your party ideology and more about your values as a party, right? And so I think focusing on the values is a really good way to get people in the door. Because I'm sure you run into that, well, you're New Democrat? Yeah, no, that's never going to happen. I'm not going to your meeting. But if you, instead of leading with that, we'll talk about, our political organization, here's what we're focused on, here's what's important to us, and come and meet the other people that I work with. And before you know it, there are relationships building, and it's less about party ideology. Maybe you don't agree with all of it, but it's more about a vision for the future. And so, I just wanted to comment. I thought it was really great that you went with the signs, and it was more of a nonpartisan effort.